in. All right. This morning, our message is titled Back to the Future 2, but we're going to be going to a different part of the Bible as we go into our series here. And I think that at this time we especially need to remember to seek God first, and especially in prayer. There was such a man who did this, and in a time of crisis, probably a lot worse than ours. And his name is Daniel. And so we're going to be looking in Daniel chapter 2 this morning. Daniel chapter 2. The last time, beloved, we dove into the end times, quite the opposite end of the Bible. We've been in our Genesis study. And we began with an introduction to Revelation called Back to the Future. Now, in these series, most of my sources are from, of course, the Bible, in which is its own best commentary, and Dr. Henry Morris' study Bible, the MacArthur commentary on Revelation, and his study on Daniel, the Matthew Henry commentary, and I find it interesting as you read these old commentaries that a lot of what you see in the new ones came from the old ones, almost verbatim sometimes. And then there's one of those commentators that I looked up was Chuck Missler. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Chuck Missler. But he said this. He said the Old Testament is in the New... Oh, no, I'm sorry. The New Testament is in the Old Testament concealed. The Old Testament is in the New Testament revealed. There we go. So, the New Testament is in the Old Testament, but it's concealed, and the Old Testament is in the New Testament, and it's revealed. And so, to get a better overall grasp of the scope of this on the end times, I thought we'd look at Daniel and see his take on things. So turn with me to Daniel chapter 2, as we go way back to the future. Daniel chapter 2. And one of the things that we know that Daniel was gifted in, and that is that Daniel was gifted in the interpretation of dreams. So look at Daniel chapter 2. One night during the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had such disturbing dreams that he couldn't sleep. He called in his magicians and enchanters and sorcerers and astrologers, and he demanded that they tell him what he had dreamed. And as they stood before the king, he said, I have had a dream that deeply troubles me, and I must know what it means. Now, have you ever had a dream like that? Where you wake up scared, half out of your wits, but you don't even remember the dream? I think I've had one or two like that. Most of them I remember. Well, one view of this is that that is precisely what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. That he had this horrific dream, and he couldn't remember it, but he just knew it was very important. Now, some people get dreams because they eat too much of the wrong thing. But not in this case. Nebuchadnezzar had this dream because God put this dream in his mind. That's interesting. God put this dream right in old Neb's mind. And so he was scared when he got done with his dream. So, now the other view is that Nebuchadnezzar was testing his people for fraud. And like, okay, I'm going to find out if these guys are really telling me the truth. I don't know. One thing for sure is that this guy was not somebody you messed around with, right? Remember, when Nebuchadnezzar said something, he did it. What did he do? He roasted some of his military officers alive. Right? Sent them out to put those three people, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, into the furnace. He didn't care. Build it 7 times hotter. And he roasted them alive. So he was the person you didn't mess around with. Now look at verse 4. Then the astrologers assured or answered the king in Aramaic. Long live the king. Tell us the dream, and we will tell you what it means. But the king said to the astrologers, I'm serious about this. If you don't tell me what my dream was and what it means, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. But if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I'll give you many wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means. And they said again, please, your majesty, tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. The king replied, I know what you're doing. You're stalling for time, right? Because you know I'm serious about what I said. When I say, if you don't tell me the dream, you're doomed. So you have conspired to tell me lies, hoping I'll change my mind. But tell me the dream, then I'll know that you can tell me what it means. The astrologers replied to the king, no one on earth can tell the king his dream. And no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. The king's demand is impossible. No one except the gods can tell you your dream, and they do not live here among people. You're right about that, right? Except for God. And, it's interesting. The astrologers were probably looking for something to grab onto, right? Something that they could extrapolate and tell. And perhaps with their demonic help, they could do whatever. But one thing demons don't do, they don't read minds. And they couldn't get inside Nebuchadnezzar's head to tell him what he dreamed. So, verse 12, the king was furious when he heard this. And he ordered that all the wise men of Babylon be executed. And because of the king's decree, men were sent to find and to kill Daniel and his friends. And when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, came to kill them, Daniel handled the situation with wisdom and discretion. He asked Arioch, why has the king issued such a harsh decree? So Arioch told him all that had happened. Don't you love Daniel? This is a guy who's about to be killed. And he's calmly asked, what's going on here? Why are you doing this? This is great. And Daniel went at once to see the king and requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant. Whew, he's pretty brave, right? And I don't know, I suspect that at that time it's probably the same as the Asian culture. In the Asian culture, you just don't go to the king. When I was in Asia, I had to go to the president of our company for something. I had a boss that was trying to get rid of our ministry and get rid of me. And so we prayed and we went to two pastors, and had them pray and had them enlist their people in praying. We had everything translated into the right message, and because I was told, if you do go there, you better make sure you have everything in order. And we went to the president, and the Lord just really worked things out. But you just don't do that in Asian culture. So he went to the king, and he asked for more time. And so he gets more time. He requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant. And then Daniel went home, verse 17, and told his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, what had happened. He urged them to ask the God of heaven to show them his mercy by telling them the secret, so they would not be executed along with the other wise men of Babylon. That night, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Now, very important here, we really need to go to the Lord in prayer. That is really important. And it's better to do it before a crisis comes up, right? It's better to be going to the Lord with the small things as well as the big things. So Daniel here, who is obviously on good terms with the Lord, and the Lord really loves Daniel, and so he goes and he asks them to ask the God of heaven to show them his mercy by telling them the secret, so they wouldn't be executed along with the other wise men of Babylon. That night, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. He said, "Praise the name of God forever and ever, for he has all wisdom and power. He controls the course of world events. He removes kings and sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. He reveals deep and mysterious things and knows what lies hidden in darkness, though he is surrounded by light." Wow, he praises the Lord, doesn't he? He goes over like 7 things. And then he says, though he's surrounded by light, "I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors, for you have given me wisdom and strength. You have told me what we asked of you and revealed to us what the king demanded." Then Daniel went in to see Arioch, whom the king had ordered to execute the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel said to him, "Don't kill the wise men." That's pretty good. Because you know what? He could have said, "Kill the other wise men, just leave us alive," right? But he didn't. He said, "Don't kill the wise men. Take me to the king, and I will tell him the meaning of this dream." And Arioch quickly took Daniel to the king and said, "I have found one of the captives from Judah, who will tell the king the meaning of this dream." And the king said to Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, "Is this true? Can you tell me what my dream was and what it means?" This makes me believe that this king had no idea what he had dreamed. He couldn't remember. That's what I think. Daniel replied, "There are no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or fortune tellers who can reveal the king's secret. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. And he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you your dream and the visions you saw as you lay on your bed. While your majesty was sleeping, you dreamed about coming events. He who reveals secrets has shown you what is going to happen. And it is not because I am wiser than anyone else that I know the secret of your dream, but because God wants you to understand what was in your heart. In your vision, your majesty, you saw standing before you a huge, shining statue of a man. It was a frightening sight. The head of the statue was made of gold, a fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron. And its feet were a combination of iron and baked clay. And as you watched, a rock was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet of iron and clay, smashing them to bits. The whole statue was crushed into small bits of iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold. And then the wind blew them away without a trace, like chaff on a threshing floor. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth. That was the dream. Now we will tell the king what it means. Your Majesty, you are the greatest of kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and honor. Stop right there for just a second. So you see, Daniel, he made very, very sure that the glory was going to God. He wasn't pointing to himself. He was saying that God revealed this. God deserves the glory. Very, very careful to do that. Okay, as we continue, verse 38. He has made you the ruler over all the inhabited world, and has put even the wild animals and birds under your control. You are the head of gold, and this is our text for the morning. You are the head of gold, verse 39. But after your kingdom comes to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will rise to take your place. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom, represented by bronze, will rise to rule the world. Following that kingdom, there will be a fourth one, as strong as iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and the toes that you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some of the strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be strong as iron, other pots will be as weak as clay. And this mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. During the reigns of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. That is the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. And the great God was showing the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and its meaning is certain. So the main points we're emphasizing are mid-chapter. He says, Nebuchadnezzar, you have seen 4 great world kingdoms. And these 4 kingdoms stretch from you, Nebuchadnezzar, to a stone that comes and smashes them all and fills the whole earth. Now, this is the story basically of human history that goes from Nebuchadnezzar to that huge crushing or smiting stone that comes down and crushes everything beneath it. Jesus spoke of this, right, in Luke 21:24, and he called it the times of the Gentiles or the times of the nations. And if you ever wonder what this speaks of, it's the time when the nations dominate the land of Israel, and Israel is set aside. The prophet Ezekiel in chapter 10, and chapter 11, and chapter 21 says that Ichabod is written all over the nation of Israel, who will be carried into Babylon, and it's going to begin the times when the Gentiles rule in the land of Israel. Well, what about now? Is Israel still under the oppression of nations? Well, the answer in short is yes. Yes, it is. Israel's as a landmass, is in a very tenuous position, and they very tentatively hold this small portion of the original land given to them by God, and it stretches from the north all the way down to the river of Egypt, and from the sea all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates, way into where is Iran and past Iraq and Persia. And they don't even have all of the promised land that God gifted to them originally. Though they certainly, the power that Israel has, could take it. But to do so would ignite the entire Middle East, as we know. So there's still that oppression of the nations. Until what? Until the giant stone, Messiah, comes to crush the empires of the world. Now, this can be compared with what we find in Daniel chapter 7. So if you would, turn to Daniel chapter 7 just for a minute. Daniel chapter 7, beginning in verse 1. There we go. Earlier, during the first year of King Belshazzar's reign in Babylon, Daniel had a dream and saw visions as he lay in his bed. He wrote down the dream. This is what he saw. In my vision that night, I, Daniel, saw a great storm churning the surface of a great sea, with strong winds blowing from every direction. And 4 huge beasts came up out of the water, each different from the others. Wow. So here's 4 beasts, and these are just 4 other ways to see the same world empire. And the first beast, it says, was like a lion with eagle's wings. And as I watched, his wings were pulled off, and it was left standing with his 2 hind feet on the ground like a human being, and it was given a human mind. Right? And continuing on, then I saw a second beast, and it looked like a bear that was rearing up on one side, and he had 3 ribs in his mouth between his teeth. And I heard a voice saying to it, "Get up, devour the flesh of many people." Then the third of these strange beasts appeared, and it looked like a leopard. It had 4 birds' wings on its back, and had 4 heads. Great authority was given to this beast. And then in verse 7, then in my vision that night I saw a 4th beast, terrifying, dreadful, and very strong. It devoured and crushed its victims with huge iron teeth, and trampled their remains beneath its feet. It was different from any of the other beasts, and it had 10 horns. And as I was looking at the horns, suddenly another small horn appeared among them. 3 of the first horns were torn out by the roots to make room for it. And this little horn had eyes like human eyes, and a mouth that was boasting arrogantly. So, you see these 10 horns, the last piece had 10 horns, and that's the last part of the image. And then there are, in our vision in Daniel, we find that there are 10 toes. And the final form of the world rule is going to take a tenfold identity. Now, quickly sketching out, what are these 4 empires he's talking about? Back in chapter 2, quickly going through this, the head of gold is the Babylonian Empire, right? Very, very pure, very topmost. He was a ruler that was like a dictator, right? But he ruled all the known world then. It lasted only 80 years, right? He ruled for 43 years, and then his son or whoever ruled for a few more decades. It faded away when the Medo-Persians moved in one night and devastated them, and that's told in Daniel chapter 5. And it gives the whole description of how they took the city of Babylon and took over from the Babylonian Empire. Remember the handwriting on the wall, meaning tekel upharsin, right? And so that was the end of Babylon. So the head, very pure, very dense gold, but it didn't last very long. But he ruled the entire world. So the fall of the Babylonian Empire came very, very suddenly. There are probably some reasons for that. We know they're greatly debauched from the account in Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar died in 562. He was succeeded by his own son, Amel-Marduk. Marduk was one of their gods. They seem to always name themselves after their gods, their children anyway. And he was succeeded by Amel-Marduk, who was promptly assassinated. In 560, a person named Neriglissar took the throne. After 4 years he died. He was succeeded by his son, who was assassinated. And then came a man named Nabonidus. He assumed great power, and he shared it with his co-regent, whose name was Belshazzar, which brings us back to the account that's in Daniel. So what you have is very good solidarity for 43 years, and then everything falls apart. People get assassinated. Finally, in this drunken stupor, Belshazzar, in his big party, they have the angel writing on the wall. And the fall of Babylon was the end of that empire, but it's not the end of the Babylonian influence. You remember our study of Genesis, that Babylon was the foundation of the systems of evil religion. So, the first system of false religion ever recorded in the Bible was the Tower of Babel. From then on, Babylon became synonymous with false religions. All right? Okay. So, it rears its head again in the last stages of earth, which is in Revelation 17. Mystery Babylon. Why is it called Mystery Babylon? It's the fountain of false religious systems. So while the empire crumbled, the stream of it, the pollution of it, has found its way into the stream of history. So Babylon is succeeded by Medo-Persia, and Medo-Persia is lower down the kingdom of silver, the arms and the breasts. And 2 parts are the Medes and the Persians, the silver. The Medo-Persian Empire lasted, remember we had that quote last year, most kingdoms last about 200 years, 120 years longer than Babylon. And it was during that time of the Medes and the Persians that Cyrus let Israel go back and reconstruct their land. And that was just a semblance of what it once was. The third empire, we know, the Medo-Persian Empire, was followed by Greece. And the history tells us that. There's no question about it. So Daniel here is laying out centuries before what's going to happen. And it is incredibly accurate. One of the most effective witnesses we can have is to go into fulfill prophecy that we see here being laid right out. And so that is Alexander the Great. And it's going to rule, he's going to rule over the entire earth. He demanded, get this, the title, King of all the earth. And he extended his empire from Western Europe all the way to India. And this guy did incredible feats. He conquered very, very quickly, hence the leopard with the wings, and he died at just the age of about 30 years old. And so no wonder he's seen as a leopard with wings, because he sprang with an incredibly fast rate across the globe. And he came to Hellespont. He crossed the Hellespont, conquered Greece and Rome, and there he first met Persian opposition. He subdued all of Asia Minor, and he defeated literally 500,000 Persians who were under Darius, and he slaughtered them, and he broke the back of the empire. And then he began to take city after city after city, and he even swept down and took Egypt. When he got to Egypt, he founded this city that's still there. That's the city of Alexandria, which was founded by Alexander the Great and named after him. All right? So he wiped out basically the entire world. When he died, what did he die of? He was basically gluttony, drunkenness, might have been poison, malaria, who knows. But who followed him? He tried to split this kingdom into 4 parts, but then his general lost their power to the Romans. And we find them in verse 40 of Daniel 2, strong as iron, iron that breaks in pieces and subdues all things. As iron that breaks all these, it shall break in pieces and bruise, and that is the Roman Empire. The last world empire. A lot of people tried it after that. Napoleon did, Hitler did, certainly Stalin and the Russian or Soviet Union tried to conquer the world unsuccessfully. By the 2nd century BC, the Romans became so strong that the Mediterranean was basically their private pond or lake or whatever, right? And so they ruled that part of the world all the way from Great Britain to the Euphrates and from Europe to Africa. And this alliance extended itself everywhere, and basically they, with their iron feet, they trampled the world into submission. Now the Roman Empire lasted 500 years. At least one part of it, the eastern part of it, I believe it is, lasted till 1500. But as a united kingdom, Rome lasted for 500 years. It says in verse 41, whereas thou saw the feet and the toes and part of the potter's clay and part of the iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And the Roman Empire was divided, east and west. But there shall be in it the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, it will be a strong empire. So, it didn't last forever, but it did last for quite a while. As the toes, verse 42, were of part iron and part clay, so the kingdoms will be partly strong and partly brittle. The clay is the word that has to do with the baked clay that's used for tile. I always used to think that it was the clay we make stuff with, you know. But it's not that. It was the baked clay used for tile. So while it's strong, but it's not as strong as iron, it's going to be very brittle. And what's this? Verse 43 adds something else. And it says, whereas thou saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall not mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not adhere to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Iron and clay don't stick together. And the weakness and the vulnerability of the Roman Empire is that it will be a mixture of strength and weakness. And it's called here the seed of men. The kingdom is a composite of the firm and the brittle. And it says that it was as strong as iron. So it was strong. The Roman government was very, very organized, very well drilled and disciplined, and its policies were well defined. But they were so well defined, in fact, they called it Pax Romana. They had a great measure of peace in their empire, and by the way, paved the way for the spread of the gospel, for the making of their roads and things like that. But their weakness wasn't in the legs, it was in the feet. And the weakness appears only in the final form. They were strong once, but in the final form, there will be great weakness. And it's the clay is the seed of men. And there's all kinds of views of what that means. But it possibly could refer to human beings. The fact that the Roman Empire is going to be there with too many people involved in the issues. So now last week we had a quote about the cycle of nations and democracies. And in a way, the Roman Empire, and I think our 50 states are kind of comparable in a way, we have some states in our country that have made some pretty dumb decisions, we should say, and more